Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along to the wilds of Suffolk. I'm out here yet again doing what I do, walking along in beautiful locations such as this, giving you my thoughts and opinions on things that are happening in the world and the public consciousness. If it's your first time here, welcome. This is what I do. I hope you enjoy it. If you're a returning subscriber, or 1,285 of you there are today, thank you one and all for being here. It's my honour and privilege to have you along for the journey, so thank you very much. So today, as per the title, today's video is called There is no such thing as reality, only perception. Now, for those of you who have been on this journey with me for a little while, and I'm come out here and do these talks and discuss things that are on my mind, things that are happening in the world, I've been through this subject multiple times, trying to attack it from different angles and trying to present it in such a way that makes sense. I mean, a lot of what I say doesn't make any sense at all, but you know, it is this perpetual idea, this concept, this theory, this thought process that I'm trying to get into the world, that what you think is yours, your thinking, your perception of reality isn't yours. It's being shaped for you. And today, I'm going to prove it. No, it's easy. It's easy. But I've been trying to do this for a long, long time, and I've tried to sort of present it in such a way from different... The reason I do what I do, right, is I've read all these self-help books, and they're amazing, don't get me wrong. Greg Braden did a book called The TheMatrix. Awesome. And you'll notice, those of you who are perceptive, that if you've been here before, I don't have my Matrix intro that I normally have that was made by Robert over at the Comic Book G-Spot. I don't have that on my video today because my daughter... I can't do the editing on my computer at the moment because my daughter decided that my computer needed a cup of tea, and I don't have a computer anymore. So I have to get a new one, and it just means that while that's getting done, I don't have the money to buy it at the moment, so I just have to wait. While that's all in the process of waiting, I have to just do the videos as they are and then upload them. So I apologise, I don't have the Matrix beginning, but I always have the Matrix beginning since I've had it sent over to me. But today, no Matrix beginning because the computer got greedy and wanted a cup of tea and didn't respond very well to the tea, as you can well imagine. Anyway, off the subject. But I've been doing these videos for coming up to 2.5 years. I mean, coming in 3 years, close to 3 years, I think, coming up to, and 2.5 years, something like that. And I've been trying to explain things in a certain way and trying to get a message across. But all these books that I've read, all these self-help books, Divine Matrix, and Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Make Friends and Influence, How to Win Friends and Influence People, all these kind of books. Essentially, like The Secret, they all say essentially the same thing, but they all come up from a different angle, and they try and explain the same thing from a different way, from their perspective, and to try and get through to you. So, I've read all these books, and my wife has read a lot of them as well, and she didn't resonate with a lot of the books because she didn't get it. She didn't understand that, the way that they were putting it, the way they were trying to bring the concept forward from their perspective. So when I do these videos, sometimes you'll see that there's a crossover. Sometimes I've done the kind of video that I'm doing today before, but I'm doing it again because hopefully with the things that are happening in the world, and I think it's deliberate, with the things that are happening in the world, it gives you that insight into what I'm talking about and opens it up for you to go, I see it now. You with me? Okay, so that's the reason why we're doing today. There is no such thing as reality, only perception. Okay? Now, this whole idea of this reality, this perception, it's a philosophical idea, and philosophy is being woven into lots of different ways, communication ways. So philosophy has been woven into the tapestry of our society. And philosophy essentially is to question who am I? What am I here for? Philosophy in a reduced down to the minutest part that it can be. So the Matrix brought philosophy into the mainstream. Who am I? What am I here for? Blah, 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 you know. And it also introduced the idea that we're living in a created reality, this matrix that we live in, that is with us all the time. It's with you when you pay your taxes. It's with you when you help your landlady with their garbage. And that escapes most people when you try and explain to them that the matrix is, we're living in it. This isn't real. Okay? So, okay. How best to start this? All right, let's start here. Now, for those of you who don't know, if you're new here, this is how I do it, okay? I come out here, I don't have a script. This is all just one take. There's no editing. The only editing I do is to edit the intro on and, you know, that kind of thing. Just make it all nice and fluffy, but this is unedited, one stroke, one shot. If I get it wrong, I have to go and record it all again. So this is what it's about. I come out here with a general idea, a perception, a concept, and then I try and form that concept into a cohesive discussion and present that in such a way that it's interesting and hopefully insightful, that you can take something away from it and integrate it into your thinking. Hopefully, if you agree with it, then great. If you don't, then you can discard it and say that guy's crazy. Either way, I don't mind. I lose nothing. You know, I come out here to do this because we're all, through our experience, through our lives, through our reality, we're all trying to influence other people, and we have to decide how we're going to influence them. Is it for the positive? Is it for the negative? Am I just trying to gain favor, or am I trying to con you? You know, anything like that? I'm not selling you anything. Nothing. I'm not selling t-shirts. I mean, I praise the guys that do. Good on them. That's not what this is about. I come out here, speak my mind, and then you get to decide what you think of it. Okay, enough of the explanation. Now, as we look into this reality that we're living in, that we're told is reality, have a look what's just happened recently. Okay, now this will prove to you that your reality is created for you. So just recently we saw in Ukraine, we were told by all the newspapers, by the politicians, by Zelensky, Ukraine, that Russia had bombed Poland and killed a couple of people. Okay? We were told that. It was all over the newspapers, it was all over the TV, all over the news. The politicians were talking about it. Zelensky was at the G20 via satellite call, telling everyone the Russians have bombed Poland. Now Article 5 needs to take effect, and the whole world, or NATO anyway, needs to come together to fight against Russia because Article 5 has been broken. Article 5, for those of you who don't know, if a country, any country, but of course they're trying to make it so it's Russia, attacks a NATO nation, then the entire NATO group of countries then have to fight as one against that nation that attacked one of those nations. Okay? So the instigation of this Russia firing a weapon into Poland and killing people was supposed to trigger Article 5 to have NATO enter the war against Russia. Okay? And it was everywhere. I'm sure you saw it. If you didn't, you're probably living off grid and what are you doing watching this? But yeah, I will guarantee you heard about it. You know. So we were told that, unequivocally, especially by Zelensky, we know that it was Russia. You know, but actually, what it turned out to be was Ukraine fired a weapon of some kind. They said it was an anti-missile missile, and it completely missed and then flew over into Poland and killed a couple of people over there. So Ukraine fired that weapon. So if Ukraine has fired a weapon and it's gone into Poland, which is a NATO country, and it's killed 2 people, wouldn't Article 5 be triggered against Ukraine? Wouldn't it? Surely? Huh? No? Okay, anyway. But the point being is that reality was created. It wasn't real. None of it was real. It was all created by the media, much like that movie Wag the Dog. If you haven't seen that, have a look. Dustin Hoffman, some time ago. Where they created a reality, they created a story from nothing. It was all a lie, just like Russian collusion, just like the piss take dossier, all this kind of nonsense. It's all bullshit. It's all nonsense. The Russian hacked the elections, all that kind of, the Russians, of course, because there's always the Russians. So they created this reality for us that was put forth and being told as truth. Because the news wouldn't lie to us, would they? AP and Reuters and all those guys, they definitely wouldn't lie. The same BBC that had a paedophile necrophiliac working for them for 30 years, that news agency, they wouldn't lie. Okay? So they told us that it was definitely the Russians had bombed Poland. They created a reality for us to live in. Okay? So that's not real, but it was put forward as real. So people accepted it as reality. Oh, those pesky Russians. What are they doing? Bombing Poland. Yeah, what are they doing bombing Poland? Why would the Russians bomb Poland? Because they want all of Europe, Chris, don't you know? Those Russians they want everything. Okay, now, where does that thinking come from, by the way? Why do people believe that? Why do people believe the Russians hacked the elections? Why do Russian people believe that Russia was colluding with Trump? All false. All of it false. Not real. Fabrication. Story. Okay? Now, just to expand on the point a little, to show you that this whole idea of reality and perception. So that was a perceived reality that was created for us by the media, by politicians, by this whole event that happened. It was a perception. It wasn't reality. So that perception was created for us. So the perception became our reality. Do you understand? Okay. So I'll build on that point, as I was saying. I'll build on the point of the perception creating reality. Now, the reality is that most of us, I'm not going to say everyone because some of us have a different opinion of ourselves, but most of us have a low opinion of ourselves. We think we're too fat, we're too ugly, we're too skinny, we're too not muscly enough, who knows, all this bullshit that's programmed into our minds to believe something when it's really not true. We have these perceptions come to us through the media, through magazines, through beauty magazines, women's magazines, muscle magazines, and this idea of what the perfect person looks like, man, woman, child, gay, lesbian, whatever it is, what their version of a reality of the perfect person is. So women need to be, I can't even keep up with what women need to be now. They need to have 5 million friends, because if you don't have that many friends, then you're not a real woman. You need to have children, but not have children, because then it makes you tied to children and it makes you part of the regime. The corporate, what do they call it? You're being held down if you have children. You're not contributing to society if you have children, so you have to work. So you have to have children, work, and pretend you don't have children, have all the friends, and go parachuting when you have your period. There's this whole false perception of reality. It's false. It's completely false. These beauty magazines that they put out for women, beauty magazines. I mean, honestly, it's full of plastic and big plastic boobs, and I'm like, what's wrong with people? How can you possibly believe they're injecting botulism into your face? I mean, botulism. Go and look up what botulism is, okay? Injecting botulism into your face and fillers into your lips, and all this shit that people do to themselves because they have such a low opinion of themselves, because their perception of reality has been warped by all the influences around us. Okay, so you might go through life thinking, oh God, I'm too ugly, I'll never get a partner. Look at me. I mean, I've got a face like a bulldog licking piss off a stinging nettle, and my wife is beautiful. I mean, I don't question it. I just say, okay, great, But, that's my perception of me. My wife's perception of me is something completely different. So whose is the reality? What's the real in that? The real is our perception of it. And our perception is guided, manipulated through the things that we come into contact with our world. Now, have a look at how it's all set up for you in this reality. okay? Where do you get your truth from? Where do you gain the understanding, the knowledge, the truth that you take forward as your reality, your perception of reality, and how is that perception shaped? Okay, so your perception of reality, depending on where you grow up, who your parents are, what school you went to, what you came into contact with in your life, you know. So I've used the analogy before. It was not really an analogy. It's the story of a guy that's over here who, Tommy Robinson, he calls himself. Tommy Robinson, he's been labelled a racist, a xenophobe, a homophobe. I mean, you name it, he's been labelled it all. And by his own admission, he has been involved in things that have been racist and, you know, homophobic and, you know, blah, 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 blah. By his own admission, he doesn't claim to be a saint. And I'm not trying to promote the guy at all. Not at all. I'm mentioning this in passing. That his perception of how things work in this world is guided by the things that he's come into contact with. Okay, so in the area where he lives here in the UK, there was Asian Muslim men that were taking young girls, as young as 12, 13, giving them drugs and alcohol and then having sex with them. You know, they're minors. They're minors. Now, in his perception, Asian Muslim men are, what word can I use? I don't know whether I can say paedophile, but I'll say it anyway, you know what? So his perception is shaped by his reality that he experiences. But is that everyone's reality? You know, I lived in London for 18 years. I never saw that. So my reality, my perception of reality is different from his because of the experiences, my life experiences that I've had growing up. The things I came into contact with, the school I went to, the area I grew up, all those kind of things have shaped my experience. So the prism of how we view the world, our perception of reality is shaped by our experience. Okay? Now, if everyone's experience is different, because we've all had different lives, different growing up. I mean, in my house, my brother and my sister and myself, we've all got a completely different viewpoint of the world, even though we grew up with the same parents, we went to the same schools, you know, we hang out with a lot of the same people, but we all think differently about the world because, well, my sister, obviously, she's a girl, a woman now, but, you know, what is a woman, right? You know, her experience is different from mine. So we've all got that. We can all say, yeah, but how can you possibly understand me if you've had a different experience than I have? So what's the reality then? What's the reality? If everyone's having a different experience and the reality is shaped by our perception of a reality, then what's the reality? Okay? Now, this takes us on to something else I've talked about before, which is called Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat. Okay, now, if you haven't heard of it, I'll give you a brief explanation of what it is and how my perception of what that thought experiment means, and we'll build on that. So, Schrodinger's cat was a thought experiment that was put forward. Thought experiment. It didn't really happen, so don't worry, there was no cats harmed in the making of this experiment. So this thought experiment was, if we were to take a cat and put a cat in a box with a radioactive isotope, the cat exists in a state of being both alive and dead within the box, because you don't know until you open the box. Okay, so that whole scenario, that whole thought experiment is a couple of different things that come from it. Okay, now one of those things that comes from that is that the observer influences the result. So you only truly know whether the cat's alive or dead when you open the box and observe it. So your observation of that event plays into the result, the outcome. And the outcome is influenced, the outcome is influenced by your expectation of the result of that experiment. You understand? So it's the observation has an influence over the outcome, but your perception of what the outcome will be influences that because you're observing. Does that make sense? So the other thing that the Schrodinger's cat the concept of the idea of the experiment, the thought experiment, what that brings to the table as well is that there is multiple possibilities that exist at the same moment. And that possibility is it's like a potential energy. You know, like I don't know whether you were back in school, if you ever did about energy, potential energy and kinetic energy. Potential energy is like holding down a spring. So all the potential in that spring is now coiled up. So all the energy, all the potential energy is stored in it. And it's only when you let it go that it becomes kinetic, right? So, you know, that's much like the dualistic nature of our reality that we experience. On, off, yes, no, black, white. But that's taking out all the subtleties in between. So it's not black or white, it could be some shade of grey, right? And that shade of grey is where we exist in our perception of that reality that we experience. You with me? So the perception of the reality is shaped by our experience, and our experience influences the result of what's going to come to us. How does that happen? So if the Schrodinger's cat explains to us that every possibility exists simultaneously, and it's our observation that creates that reality for us, because we are influencing the result of that experiment with our observation, and we're also influencing it through our expectation of the outcome of that experiment. Okay? And how is our expectation created? Our expectation is created by our perception of reality. So all of the influences that you have in your day as you go throughout your life, your work, your home life, your partner, your children, your friends, your family, or maybe it's your cat or your dog or your rabbit or whatever it is, being out in the forest, breathing in some fresh air and being in nature, that can influence you. Now, I've talked about it a lot while I've been doing these videos. There's a movie called The Secret, and The Secret is all about the law of attraction. And the law of attraction comes into being where you are constantly existing at a frequency of reality. Okay? So the best analogy I can give you is two guitars are in a room. Okay? Two guitars. They're completely separate, opposite sides of the room. If you strum one of the strings on one of the guitars, the other string on the other guitar will vibrate, because that is the frequency that's resonating throughout that space. Okay? So we go to Tesla, and Nikola Tesla that is, if you don't know who that is, go and do some research. Nikola Tesla said that if you want to understand the nature of the universe, you first have to understand frequency, vibration, energy. Okay? So from what our understanding is, our perception of this reality is that every possibility exists simultaneously, the multiverse theory, so that anything could happen at any one moment. And you can influence that. Oh, something's going on. You can influence that through your observation and the actions you take. So for instance, here we are. I'm at a point in the forest. Okay. There's a path that runs off that way, and there's a path that runs off that way. Okay? So, as you go through your life, there's multiple paths you can take. Do I go to work today? Do I go to a theme park today? Do I go and get on a plane and bungee jump, or do I go skydiving, or what am I going to do today? Anything is available to you. Oh, but I don't have the money for that. Well, I can't possibly go skydiving. I haven't got my period. But every possibility exists simultaneously. So why are we constantly having the same things coming to us? Because how we approach our life, what we put out there, our frequency, our vibration, is governed by not only us. It's how we respond to what we're coming into contact with. So if you're looking at the news constantly, is negative, war, fear, doubt, you're going to die, whatever's going to kill you today. I mean, who knows what it could be? Who knows what they're going to throw at you today? So if you understand that the environment that we're living in, this that we're swimming through every day, this reality, if that's what we're calling it, you can influence it by observing it, but not only observing it, but observing it with an outcome, expectation of an outcome that's positive to you and to the wider earth. Okay, that's why at the end of my videos I always sign out with you can change the world with the way that you think, the way that you act, the way the words that you speak, all that. Remember, if you've been here before, we collectively can change the trajectory of this reality that we're experiencing if we put our minds to it and if we actually work towards a common goal. But we're all being force manufactured this idea, this concept that people are bad, there's too many of us, we all need to die or it's going to end badly. That's being forced into us from the environment, through the media, through the politicians, through the G20. You know, all these messaging that we're getting constantly is negative. So the only way that we're going to change it is us to change it and ignore the reality that they're trying to create for us through this forced manufacture of the reality that you're experiencing. You with me? There's a lot of reality talk and there's a lot of, it seems like a circular argument, but it is a circular argument because they understand how the influence works. And I'm trying to explain that in such a way to simplify it, to bring it down to the simplest basic form, to say you can change your reality with the way that you approach it. You know, I've been exceedingly fortunate in my life. I don't say lucky anymore because lucky means that you have no place in it. It's just purely happenstance. Good fortune, on the other hand, means you're playing a part in that good fortune. You're actually influencing your reality to have good things come to you. And everyone can do it. Why aren't we? Because it's bad to be happy, Chris. You shouldn't be smiling when everything's going down the toilet. You shouldn't be happy. But I am. Most of the time. I mean, sometimes I get upset and make videos and tell you all how unhappy I am, how pissed off I am at these scumbags. That, because it's all about, I can't stand the influence of these people because they're toxic. So, if things like, if what I'm saying isn't true, things like body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria wouldn't exist. This whole negative image of things, of people that they have of themselves, comes from somewhere. And that's the reality that's been created for us. So do you like it? Do you like the reality that's you're experiencing as your life right now? You have to decide. And if the people that are pushing you to accept a reality that you don't want to live, if people are pushing you towards our politicians, World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, your ears are bugs. If these people are pushing you towards a reality that A, doesn't benefit you, B, makes you upset, C, destroys all the goodness that you look around you, your friends, your family, the people, all those good things, if that's the reality that they want to push on you, then don't accept that. I'm having a shirt made, because I like shirts, they're great. I'm having a shirt made that says, I reject your reality and I substitute my own. And we can all do that if we choose to. So I hope this rambling has made sense. I hope it's been put into perspective that the reality, there is no reality. It's your perception of the reality. That's the real thing. It's your perception that's real to you. I can explain to you that the sky's actually green, but it's like for your reality, it's not, because all your life you've been told the sky is blue by other people. So you're accepting other people's reality as your own. It's time to accept your own reality. Take a moment, step back, get out into nature, take some time, breathe some fresh air, talk to some interesting people, listen to some interesting content that makes you question the reality of the experience and decide what you want to experience. Because it's only then that you can choose a reality and invite the reality to you through the frequency you're vibrating at. That's the reality where you want to be. Vibrate at that frequency. You want to be down here? You want to be up here? Choice is yours. So, go out into the world. Do good. Be good. You can change the world with the way that you think, the way that you act, the words that you speak, and how you interact with people. So go out there and do that. But most importantly, look after yourself, look after each other. I look forward to seeing you real soon. Take care. Ciao for now.